Вітаю всіх на кіносередді.
So I'm pleased to welcome you all at the Film Wednesday traditionally. So if you might not remember what is going on, or if you're here for the first time, I would like to remind you that Film Wednesday is the series of events dedicated to the contemporary Ukrainian filmmaking and for everything connected with Ukrainian film that has been organized with the NGO, the Contemporary Ukrainian Cinema. Well, with the support of the Ukrainian Cultural Foundation, and we're really grateful for that support. And today we're going to have our third workshop in the framework of this season of Film Wednesday. And today we have Oleksandra Kostina, the producer, who's going to tell us about what it means to create films in the international co-production. So please, Oleksandra today is with us. I'm pleased to welcome you here today. So I'll give a brief introduction on Oleksandra. Oleksandra is a producer and co-founder of the Besson Film and the stop motion animation film studio Happy Hippie Love. And she has been participating in many different international programs for producers. She has been participating in the European Audiovisual Entrepreneurs Workshop, which is supporting the European Producers Network. She has been participating in the networking for producers in Cannes Film Festival, and she is been participated for the European Women Filmmaking Associations, and there has been many other workshops that Oleksandra has been participating in. And currently, Oleksandra is working with a debut full feature fictitious film directed by Dmytro Sokolitki-Sobchuk, titled Pamphir, that is the co-production between Ukraine, France, Poland, Chile, and is created with the support not only with the Film Foundation of these countries, but also with the support of the international foundations. And she's also working with a debut full feature of Yelizaveta Smith, the director, that is called The Vacuum, that has been developed under the many different script workshops that has been with the NetPoint Future Lunch in the Torino Film Lab Extended Laboratory. And also this work has been presented to many different European co-production markets in Cottbus and Sofia, in many other prestigious international platforms as well. And that film is going to be created in the co-production between Ukraine, Germany, and France. And there is one another short film that Oleksandra is currently producing, is the short film that has been as well presented at the most prestigious co-production forum, the European Short Pitch. And this film is going to be created in the co-production between Ukraine and France. In the production, there is a documentary full-length film, Ukraine Behind the Screens, by Vladislav Silchenko. And understanding all of this scope, all of the list that I have just announced, and it's not the full list, because as far as I know, Oleksandra has been involved in producing the animated film with the Happy Hippie Love production company. She has made the short film about the Brave Factory Festival, or the Unima film as well. So understanding all of this list of the work that you have already performed, and it's a very tremendous list, an impressive list, even though that is basically your company or producing company is very young right now, and quite recently you have co-founded it, quite recently you have opened this company. What would have been very interesting for me was to first of all to know from your side what has given you the start of it. So what was the start of all of it, and what has been the key for this international interest for the debuting producer, and with the debuts for the directors as well, especially in this very complicated and competitive place as the author cinema is. But before Alexander is going to answer my questions, I would like to remind you that you can pose your questions in the comments or in Zoom under all of our broadcastings in both Zoom, Facebook, or YouTube. You can give us the questions in the chat or raise your hand, and we can turn on your video and turn on your mics. And for the two best of questions will be awarded with two awards from our side. And I will keep on reminding you about those awards throughout our conversation, and I will tell you more further on. But right now, Alexandra, the floor is yours. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be here today with you. I'm actually only starting to work as a producer, and all of these projects that Maxim has mentioned, they're all of the projects that are still currently being produced at some different stages of development or production. So the experience that I wanted to share with you is mostly my experience at this very moment. I do understand that in 2 or 3 years we would have a very different conversation, of course, but as far as I understand, most of the people are currently interested, especially those people who are only making these first steps. Then I would really like to share my experience of how it was for me, what was good for me, and what you should draw your attention to. Speaking about being a young company, yes, basically the Boson Films only is 3 years old, and I'm working in the film production for 14 years already. And basically, before that, I have had the opportunity to collaborate with many very talented Ukrainian directors and authors with very professional producers and working under their lead as the line producers or executive producer. So basically, at some moment, I have just understood and it has become clear and apparent for me that I have the experience to create my own stories, the stories that I really want to share, that I really want to tell. So why there is the very interest raised by the Ukrainian films, especially even the debut films, why it has been met so kindly by the international audience. First of all, we have a lot of talents, and our country can boast with very good talents, and you can feel that when you participate in different workshops and when you're reading the stories of others, European authors and directors, and everyone outlines that our authors, they have the unique language, their unique visions, their unique ideas. There is a lot of things that they want to say to the world, and that's something that is very interesting to start with. On the other hand, we're currently building, as we had this previous system, we're only launching and starting to build up our system, our filmmaking systems. We're all beginners in some way. So I do believe that we have a lot of fire, a lot of passion to do that. So I guess all of these passes that have already been paved by the European producers, maybe they do not believe that it's a very interesting thing to take. It is still something very new for us. This is something that we're doing for the first time. So I do believe that this is the result of all of the achievements of the long-term work. And the most important thing that I wanted to say is basically it doesn't really matter whether it's a debut or no. It is if it's a good film, if you decided that you will spend a couple of years of your life for this project, then this project has to be interested not only for you, for your director, for your authors. This project has to be interested for the audience. And if it's going to be high quality a project, then they will be very interesting for everyone around you. So this is our main task to give the full potential for the films that we work with as producers. And all of the tools are here for us. I want these positive moments that we have to outline, the international foundations, the international partners, and all of the other people in the filmmaking that I've met throughout my past, they're very positive about the debuts because they believe that debuts is about the new great ideas, new energy, and they usually really love to work with debutants. The most important is not to undermine their trust, but the first meeting, the first conversation, the first tryout. So this is something that is really appreciated. They will give the chances to the debutants. They're not afraid of that. So we just have to try and everything will be okay. Okay, thank you. Well, basically, speaking about these debutants, we already have the very first question from our audience rising. There's a very widespread question, and I know it's a painful moment for a lot of debutants as well. Mikhailo says, I haven't already made a script for the full feature film. I have a short film that has been made with the professional actors and DOPs. How can I meet a producer? So I think at this very moment, we can generalize this question and let us already start this conversation. Okay, how does this collaboration between the director and the producer starts with? And how does the project enters the European market? So what are the first steps for the authors of the films? Well, basically, every producer, they have their own methods of working with their authors. So some people so for some people, it's much more interesting to search for the new names, to open the new names, to do the first short films with them, to develop the short films and make the full features, to collaborate with the authors systematically from the very beginning of their path. I would like to say that from my side, like personally, for me, like, some people only work with the already renowned authors and renowned names because they do not have the time and possibility to do that with this preparatory work, or they do not have the resources. Some people try to combine. It's a choice of every producer. At this very stage, I have to say and I have to admit that the most important thing for me is to find the development for the director to be interested in developing that project on their own. There are many mechanisms right now for developing your projects: international labs, foundations, different festivals. There is the opportunity for you to make films even without using any additional professional actors or whatever. And if you're doing this very first work, if you're doing this very first piece in the framework of your learning or together with your friends, and if you're making some certain steps, so this work would have been seen by the world, even in Ukraine, there's many festivals that you can apply to, and you can receive the very good opinion from the professional audience. So for me, that is a very good sign that if you have done something, it is a very good sign for me that I will be very interested in working with you, because it takes a lot of attention and time from my side to work on each of the projects. And if at certain stage the directors or the authors are not ready to provide the very same times and efforts that I am ready to provide to the projects, then it's going to be tough. Have a very young company. I don't have a lot of resources available, so I cannot afford that. So basically, in order for me to be very interested in this collaboration, especially for those projects that I keep in mind, those are already the people that are searching for themselves, people who are learning, who are looking for new opportunities, who are developing. And if you're doing that, then there's a lot of things in common that we can have and that we can share.
Зрозуміло, дякую.
Okay, clear. Thank you very much. So
Давайте
then let us talk about
трошки
another topic. So let us talk that,
індем цей
like, for example, you have already have this connection between the directors and the producer, and what to do next, what to do next. So what are the first steps for the project at the international arena? Well, there's going to be a little bit of different topic because there's going to be mostly about the development of the project. Well, yes, but I can just briefly tell you that in order for the projects to receive the international foundation, then you have to meet some certain requirements. You have to be seen, and you can make the project seen with your you're being active on the international markets, being active on the professional platforms as a producer or as a director, to be active about your projects, working on the different script labs or in the different project labs developments, participating in the different foundations for the development of the projects. There are many different foundations that support the projects on the development stages, or the national foundations that will give you the support there. So if you're making those steps, and if you are asking your partners, just as well as I've said about the directors, if you are coming to your international partners and not with logline or a synopsis, but if you have the very certain package there, and if you have already made your own castings, if you find the locations, if you worked on the billboard, if you already have had your teaser, then of course you're going to be more seriously treated then. And it's already clearer what kind of projects you would like to do, what kind of efforts you're ready to invest there. And of course, it's going to be making your communication easier because you're speaking with the same professional language with your future partners.
Зрозуміло.
Okay,
А
cool.
от
That's
зараз
clear as well. But can you please tell me,
ось ти кажеш про те, що
you
ти
have been
спілкуєшся з
saying as well
партнерами,
that when you're coming with the
які
future partners, and
які
how
як
can you understand
зароджується оце
how
партнерство?
this partnership
Як
begins? Can you please explain it
як
maybe?
як
How you set out this co-production, how it begins, let us put it this way. How
зрозуміти, що
do you get that this
людина
is
це
this
твій
person that is your
досвідчений
co-producer,
як
your
партнер,
partner,
і він
and
може
how to
бути
persuade this person to start making film with you. If you have already found a certain person, and if you have already have like maybe doubts, or you see this person as a partner already, then first of all this person has to feed your ideas and human qualities, because you're going to be working together for a very long period of time, and you're going to be working in the stressful conditions, and you have to fit. And even this desire and knowledge how to have the very same sense of humor, or how can you develop the overall communication, how you talk to one another, how you communicate with one another. It has to fit, because if there's something's going to be in disbalance or in disharmony, then there's going to be additional complications because of that, and it's not going to be felt from the very beginning, but then in half a year or a year, that might be a very big problem there. So you have to find your people in spirit. Then the co-producer is the co-author of the film. Well, I believe there are the co-author of the film, and according to the European Convention on the co-production, then the producer does not only provide the financial impact, but also the creative impact, and this creative impact has to be of just the same as the financial impact as well. And it's not only about like, okay, we will give you an editing person, the editor is a very important person that really going to make your film in the end. So this person has to be interested in your project, not interested in you as in a director, but they has to be interested in your project, because you might start as the co-producers, as partners, but this project does not fit to you. And if you match as a producers, then people might not have the very same interest in the project as much as it's needed for the good collaboration. Because if the producer read out their project and they get back to you with their eyes shining, and you feel like they know what the author wanted to say, you know what is the director's vision is going to be there, then your co-producer is going to help you to find the people who are going to get the best out of the project. They'll find the needed equipment, they'll find the needed professionals with additional discounts or whatever. People are going to be motivated, people are going to be the co-authors, so they're not going to be just the financial partners, and that is important. The third moment is about recommendations, because basically this is something sometimes you might not have time for that, but it's better to spend some time for that and, asking some people who have already been collaborating with other people, maybe your colleagues with the Ukrainian market, maybe they have collaborated with this partner, how the collaboration went up, or your colleagues from other countries. There's nothing bad about that. Everyone knows why this question is being asked. And basically, they're going to give you the feedback and going to give you the understanding whether this person fits for your further on collaboration or no. And of course, the corporate producer has to have this profile of the projects that fit your projects. Because if your co-producer is going to be working on documentaries and now you're working on the feature films, it is possible, but you have to understand that the person has lesser expertise in this field, and you have to understand whether you are ready to have the maybe minor producer who's going to be studying from you and from your experience. Okay, thank you. But let us get to the very specific cases and specific examples. Can you please tell us your projects, about your projects and about how you work with that? Where have you met, for example, with your co-producers for the projects that you're currently working on, together? So where did you meet them and how this collaboration has started? What was the hook? Well, okay, let us speak about Pamphir, because right now we are in the post-production phase, and this is already the final system in place, the final co-production system in place already there. We have very good partners, and I have to be honest with you by saying that we're very, very lucky to having found the partners. This is basically the our co-producers for Poland. Um, I've met Claudia, my co-producer from Poland, in Cannes for around 4 or 5 years ago because of a very different project. We just met. We've just met. We just were working on a different. We've been talking about a different project, but we've never happened to make it. Then I have started to work at the project. I've started to look for partners for Pamphir, and because Metro has been in Gaude Polonia, That is the Polish workshop for directors, and her previous film has been done in the co-production with Poland. So that has already been a very natural way for finding our producer, and we basically it was much easier for us to work on this territory because the director has already made a co-production with Poland in short film. He has shown a very good result. So basically the producers know him already. So I've started to look for the Polish producers who would be very interested in these projects, and we met Claudia in the film festival in Toronto. We have already been in development with Metro. We have had the support of the Ukrainian Cultural Foundation. And at the festival in Toronto, we've set out a meeting. We've talked to Claudia. We have told her what we're doing. She said that she's very interested in that. She will read it out. And we just went for different countries again. The next time we met was another half a year after the film festival in Sofia in the film meetings. At this moment, our project has already been in the residence for Cannes Film Festival. We have been invited to the film production markets where we've met. We've already had a clearer script. We had reworked the script again. So we've got back to Claudia. She read the new version of it and she said, okay, she's ready to do that. She's ready to do that. And that was basically our first confirmed partner. And starting with that, and if we just talk to, we just have to say that how important it is to have very good partners. We have two co-producers with from Poland. For example, one of them, she came to our pitching one and she was so into projects. It was even we felt this energy. The energy was so helpful. Speaking of our French co-producer, Laura Briand, so basically that is a different story. She shouldn't have been our co-producer because I've participated in the mentorship program for the European Women Association, and what we have said from the very first day that your mentors are your mentors, they're not your co-producers. So please do not sell them your projects and do not try them to engage into your project. They work here with you to develop you as a producer, to develop you as a personality in film, but not to become your co-producers. So that's why I've said nothing to Laura Brianna. I've never told her anything about my co-project. I didn't want to get her as a potential co-producer, and we have collaborated in this framework of this program and for a half a year. And she asked me to read out the script. When she read the script, she told me that I want to do that with you. So that was her idea. That was her step towards us. Then speaking about the co-producer from Chile, so that's also the story that, there's joint energies and similar energies there create the joint people, and you have to find those people who are on the same page with you, the people that are being required by this project. So we've had our director has known this other producer because he has been the producer from one of the colleagues from one of the labs that the Metro has attended before, and our Polish co-producer has known him. I known him indirectly, and so this moment when we had this opportunity to collaborate, all our ways have taken us to this person. It was from these three sides. It was trilateral ways. So we have asked Giancarlo whether he would like to join us, and he said, "Yes, I'm with you." So there was no any additional negotiations or any additional time spent to do that. It is a question about finding your people. When you find your people, everything works out with ease.
Так, ну а у нас, в принципі, ще
Okay,
все
cool.
все
So we are
якраз
still
якраз
on.
такі йдуть питання про
We're still on, and we have. Can I offer that as well? Can I offer that? Like you've asked me to make a presentation. I've made a presentation. So yes, I will just give you the presentation. I will just tell you everything that I wanted to say, and if we'll have some questions, then I will just, yeah, yes, of course, because basically all of the questions that have been asked right now, so we're all about the same, and we will get back to that after your presentation block. So right now, I would like to remind you that the authors of the two best questions, they're going to have the specific mask from the film Wednesday, and you will have the coffee in the vintage cafe Vagabonds in Kiev. So please, Sasha, the floor is back to you. Can we launch the first slide of the presentation? Yes, because maybe think the next one. Yes, because basically, yes, I'll be happy to share with my experience of this international co-production. Very, very briefly, what is the international co-production? I am sure that you know that, but it is important to start with the very definitions of it. So the international co-production is being regulated by the number of international agreements, and it's only possible if there is the agreements that in place that have been verified by the legislation that you collaborate with. The most widespread collaboration for Europe, for our territories, the main agreement that's about creating films is the European Co-Production Convention. There are a couple of different editions of this convention. All of the countries should ratify it. Ukraine had only ratified the previous convention, not the updated one, so we can work with that, but only under the old rules. According to this convention, there has to be at least two co-producers for the European countries that have ratified the European Convention. The minimum parts, if you have the two co-producers, the minimum share of one co-producers is 20%, the maximum 80%. So we can have 25-75, 30-70, but it might not be like 10-90. So at least one country has to provide 20%, and the most of it 80%. So as I've already have said, it's not just about the financial impact, it is the creative impact as well. And the creative impact as well has to meet those requirements as well. Another part of the co-production according to the European Convention is the multilateral. Three or more countries, the same rule applies, minimum 10%, maximum 70%. You have to know that because you have to know that because I didn't know that from the very beginning. I thought that if you can only be the minimum share of 10%, it applies to all of the countries. But no, the minimum 10% of share is if you have three partners at the very least. If you have less partners, there is one who has the minimum of 10%. There are three partners who are in this scheme, then the fourth, the fifth, and sixth, they might not fit into this scheme. The most important is that the three main partner would fit into this multilateral scheme. The fourth producer can already have this 5% or even 3% of the impact. That is acceptable. There's also the collaboration on the collaboration agreements between the specific countries. You don't know that maybe you and I might not know that we have the agreement on the further on collaboration between Ukraine and Canada, Ukraine and Israel, Ukraine and France. So you can collaborate not based on the European Convention when you have to apply for at least 2 months in advance before the filming is beginning. So you have to provide a certain package of documents. You have to stick to these quotas, but you can work based on the collaboration agreements between the countries, bilateral agreements that you have a different kind of collaboration agreements and requirements. So you have to read those out and you have to keep them in mind when you are working on the development of your project. You can already work with a co-production on investments agreements. What does it mean? The sales agents investment, in private investors investment, the television channels investment, all of the investment that can be provided can be calculated as the co-producers, but it can be a separate investment agreement. So you don't have to rely on the European Convention or any other bilateral agreement between the countries. Next slide, please. And the peculiarities on creating film, the main benefits and the main cons about it. You have to think about that when you're making the co-production. At many different workshops, the very first thing that is being said when you speak about the co-production, if you may create the film on your own with your own money, do that. Why it is so important? Because there is a lot of benefits, but the co-production has a lot of pros as cons as well. So if you know that you want to make the film in a very limited period of time, you have enough money to do that, you're not really interested in so that the other parties would provide any other creative impact into your film, you want to do with your all everything with your local talents. So there is no need for you to search for the co-producers, because if you're looking for the co-producers, you will have to try to compromise on something. Why? The best pro for the international co-production that it's consolidation of the experience. For me, as a deputy producer, to work with a producer who already had made a lot of projects, it is a very big benefit because they can help me to understand in some certain moments, to find some certain challenges. They can help me with the contacts. They can help me with looking for additional financial support. There are many things that their experience is helping me to deal with because we're working on the joint project and it's very important. Then it gives you additional additional expertise and additional expertise, additional knowledge. We all know that the Czech Republic is the best in the special effects. France is famous for their best sound directing. So basically every country has its own peculiarity of what they're doing the best in the tech wise as well. And when you have your co-producers, then you will have the opportunity to get additional access to the additional professionals in these spheres that might not be highly developed in our country, or maybe we do not have the needed number of the professionals in the market, so they will be available for everyone in the same time. So the practices they can help you to cover some certain technical moments in your part as well, or they can add additional potential, additional expertise from the professionals from the other countries. And the most important thing about that is the division of the financial. And when you're doing it together, then they're all you're sharing the risks and sharing the budgets according to those proportions that you have. The cons of it, of course, is first of all, again, the things that when you're working with your own equities, when your own assets, you know how it works with that. When you're working with different foundations from different countries, there might be very different surprises coming on. All of the film foundations from other countries, they're very bureaucratic, they're very slow. And this, your preliminary schedule that you have had, that you will allocate the money earlier to your accounts, it might be very different in reality. You have to be ready about that. You have to communicate it wisely. You have to be ready to that. You have to be ready to see those crises. There is also important moment that is the cons that you have to make the additional filming in the territory of the co-producers. For example, you have 150 euros from the territory of your co-producer, but you have to spend this the same very money in the territory of this country. But it isn't you would like to, I don't know, spend 50,000 there and 100 somewhere else, but it's not possible to do that. So, yes, sometimes it helps, and sometimes you have to understand how effectively you should allocate this money because you didn't want to spend them in this amount in this very territory. And the biggest cons is the losing of mobility because when you are making your decisions as the producer, you just take the decision and you just go further on. But when you are working in the co-production, you have to make sure that you are making it clear for all of the partners. And it's basically you spend additional time to find the common agreements. Additional cons is, for example, working on the budget. For example, some of the work that cost in Ukraine around 10,000 euro, they will cost 50,000 hryvnias in the other countries. So this basically you have to understand that if there's going to be the very small share of your previous budget in the work, but their share as the part in as a co-producers in your further on division of the income, then it's going to be higher because they had a higher impact as well. There are some certain limitations from other foundations. If you apply for some certain foundation that you cannot be higher budget than some specific amount of money. And when you're starting with a co-production and you're starting to calculate your budget, that might be any additional pressure that you will have to consider as well. So what are the projects have the potential for the international co-production? We have started with that, and basically there is no clear answer to this question. The good projects, the ones that are very interesting, this is the first answer to give. There, the one thing that I might tell you, it's not that it's you should not think about the co-production only as of the location for the filming. Like I'm not be able to do the co-production projects if I won't have the filming as a in a Germany, or if I won't have the actors from Germany. No, that's not the main condition. Our authors are very interesting for the European producers. This new creative language that they're using for making films is something that is very interesting for their producers in Europe right now. The stories that they create are very interesting for Europe right now because they are new, they are unique, they are one of a kind. The film has to be potentially interesting for the audience and have the creative value if it has it in it, if the film has been developed rightly, and if it has the value for culture, then of course they have the potential for the international co-production. Everyone knows that. For example, we've had this support for the Aida Cinéma du Monde Foundation from France, and that's basically it's already hard to receive this foundation. They have around like 900 applications a year, and they only provide this for lower number of projects a year with this minority co-production support. They're only looking for the project that the France would be interested to join because of their high creative value. So they don't really care what the story is coming from, what kind of country the story is coming from. If they understand that there is a very good creative potential, they want the France to be the part of the story. So if you are sure that this project is very good, even if it will be fully made in some certain village, um, or a small town or a big city, or if your project has been made inside of your room even, it doesn't really matter whether you'll have only the Ukrainian actors or international actors. It might help you, it might easily to apply for the foundation when you have the international actors in place, but it's not a mandatory thing. How to search for the partners for the film to be made? First of all, the professional markets. This is the easiest way. If you already have the project that has already retained the basic financial support, or now, if for example, it was with Vacuum project with Lisa Smith, we had been in the lab for the development of project in the Midcon Future Launch. We've had been participating in the co-production market for the Karlovy Vary Festival for the Eastern Promise Lab. We won the prize. We have invited to one co-production market, another co-production market. So we have been to three co-production markets, even without having the basic finance allocated from Ukraine. It happens like that as well. But mostly the projects that will be invited to the co-production markets, they already have the certain package, the presenting package, teaser, synopsis, the mood board, the directorial vision, producer's vision, the financial plan. And basically, if you have this package of the documents available, you can apply to these professional markets. Up till 20 projects will be chosen to the film market. You'll be invited and you'll have the opportunity to present it to the international audience. And the people will then track you, they will see you, and they will find you. You're looking for the film market, and the people are looking for you, they're finding you. What you have to consider here, first of all, participating in the film market is limited. You cannot participate in all of the film markets. They only want all of them interested in showing most of the project as possible, and they have the same system as the film festivals have. There are some certain film markets that will take your projects after you have been the participant in some other film markets, but there are some other film markets that's only like the exclusivity of the projects. They can only take you with this prima nota right. So only under this condition is it possible to participate in this film market. So you have to have a clear understanding where you want to go, not just going anywhere, but why it is important for you. For example, there is a co-production market, the LESA. If you have the potential of collaborating with Belgium, with France, with Francophone countries, then you have to go there. If you're looking for the producers and co-producers from Italy, from Greece, from Southern Europe, then it must be that you should go and searching for your partners in the crossroads film market. If you're searching for the Eastern European co-producers, you have to go to the Eastern Europe and Eastern Promises co-production markets. So you have to have a clearer understanding what you're looking for before you understand where to go to. And in order to do that, you have to have your homework, you have to think of it, you have to talk to your director, you have to understand what are the other countries that might be supporting that, and they're choosing where to go to. Another place to look for the international partners is the international professional platforms. At each of the film festivals, you have a catalog, industrial section. There are all contacts available there. You can set up the meeting with anyone you want. Please communicate to the people. If there is a smaller event, basically people will never say no to you. But of course, if it's a festival in Berlin or in Cannes, then it's much more complicated to find the meetings. But there were, especially those people in Cannes, for example, those people aren't available at Cannes. They may be free at like smaller festivals. For example, you will be able not to just talk to them for 20 minutes, but you'll be able to talk to them for like hour. Another moment is the international workshops. When you're participating as that a director or as a producer, when you're participating in the certain workshops, then you meet people. That is about networking. People learn about your projects, so you just meet one another. You know that it's very interesting for you, and you can collaborate together. And the final thing is the professional collaborations, the different networks, the different producers platforms. For example, there are some platforms like the Producers Network platform. And by the way, the Ukrainian Film Institute, they have provided this opportunity. They've had the Ukrainian focus. They have chosen 5 producers, and I was lucky to become one of those producers. And they had this opportunity not only to participate in the Producers Network events, but they had also presented their projects separately. Why this Producers Network is important? Because this is the system throughout the week. There are round tables that are being held. The decision makers from all over the world are getting together, and those are the people that you will never be able to find anywhere. And maybe they will not have the time to answer your questions, and they have so many assistants that they will never see your letter. But in the framework of this round table, you can participate in that. You can share your contacts, you can share your experience. So, this is a very good mechanism of searching for your partners as well. Another moment is when you already had your network in place. This is the recommendation of your colleagues and partners. After certain programs that you participate in, you have the Facebook groups or WhatsApp chats. Well, all of the like needed partners from Serbia, France, or Germany, they can just write you up and say, guys, can you please recommend? I need a producer from Bulgaria, for example. Have you worked with anyone? How is there someone you would recommend? And there you will have the advices about those people who have been very effective and interested in work. It is the best thing that happened when you already have your own network, because you know the people are on the same page as you are, and there's of course the very good tool for searching for partners. And searching for partners territory wise. There are 5 co-production zones in Europe and the Nordic countries, which is basically the Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland. They are making the films in partnerships with one another. There is this Eastern Europe and Ukraine, Poland, Romania, and Czech Republic. The other countries, the countries that have already had this, that are closed in territory, so why it's been divided into the co-production zones. There are they have some joint moments in history and culture, language, so that would be much easier for them to find a project that would be very interesting for different territories at the very same time. The Thousand Europe, Italy, Spain, Portugal, which they are very typical for them, and Greece, very typical to do co-productions with one another, and the so-called industrial Europe, France, Germany. That's again very natural for them is to make the co-production with one another and to make this co-production together. But what is very important as well, what is the most useful is to collaborate in this territory division. But when you're coming with this unbelievable great co-production, for example, Ukraine, Finland, then the foundations both in Finland and in Ukraine, that will give you additional interest of the project, because the foundations as institutions, they're always interested in the development and exchange. And if you're going to be telling them about yet another project between Denmark and Sweden, then maybe there will be not that much interest in than making a project between Denmark and Ukraine, because the Denmark and Ukrainian projects can give you a different results for the further on development of relationship of the countries. What are the financial resources that are available in Europe? First of all, the national film foundations. And in order to do that, you will need your co-producers, because only the co-producers, only the producers from the specific countries can apply for the national film finance foundations. You can only apply to the Ukrainian film foundations if you are the Ukrainian producers. Only the French producers can apply to the film foundations in France. So you can know the BFI in the UK, also the MBB from Germany. There are the all European foundations like Eurimage, and I think that Maxim, you can tell more about the Eurimage because your great project, the SPAS film, has become one of the first who has been has received the financial support for Euromage, and this is basically the very cool tool because right now I know that their support has been granted to many films already. I know that it's very I know that if applying to the National Foundation is slightly easier because when you're applying to your own foundation, you know the rules of your foundation. And your partner applies to their foundation, you know this it's like a home airport for the pilots. But applying to the international independent foundations or the all European foundation, as Euromage is, they require additional resilience, additional courage, and a lot of time. I don't even know, and I can't even say because basically I think there are 2 months that the Euromage just gives you for the application, and each time I think every party says they start work with the day one and they're finalizing this application half an hour before the deadline is closed because there's a lot of papers that you have to provide. There's a lots of conditionalities you have to fight through just to provide your own projects to the application. So it's a very cool tool that actually works that I'm sure that Ukrainian producers will go into use it and create a very great films. And we have to use this tool further on, but it's a very complex tool as well. It's not that easy as we would like it to be, maybe. The regional foundations, this is something that is very popular in Ukraine, in Europe, and right now we're already creating the regional cultural foundations that are supporting on location. What do we mean by that? If you're filming in the certain region, and if you have a team from certain region, for example, that you have the people from certain regions of Germany or Italy, then you'll be able to receive additional financial because they're always interested in developing the tourism in the region, and the film is the very best thing to develop the tourism because you can inform people on very good locations and very nice locations that exist in certain regions. Then that is why this foundation they support it. And the regional foundations, there's a lot of foundations in Italy. There's provide a lot of money for support, but there's many criteria you have to meet. So there has to be the specific locations, they have to sound in the film that what is this very specific place there. But if in your story you have just the sea and you do not it doesn't really matter for you where this sea is located, so maybe you can make it in Sicily or Sardinia and you can receive additional financial support for your project. Additional resources for financial support in the film is the tax incentives as well. And the biggest tax incentive was 60 or 65%. So if you're basically going to make your film in a different country and every country there has a different order of how you can apply to this incentives. There is a very good criteria of what criteria you should meet. So this basically is going to be the qualified spendings, the qualified costs. And if you understand it's basically that you can spend this money in this country and that will qualify as a qualified costs, then you'll have this opportunity to receive up till the 65% of this tax incentive backs. So you've spent some money and 60% or 40% will be able to get back to you. That is yet another that is yet another line in your financial plan, the very good one, the very pleasurable one. And that is why in many different countries there is the boom of filmmaking because of these systems of incentives in Hungary. And basically, the countries with a highly developed film production, they're very interested in getting this money back to their countries and they're looking for some certain good locations. In other countries, they are helping to create the good films, local films in locally. So when you are uh, working on the certain films in certain countries, the first question that you have to ask for your partner, are there any tax incentives in their countries? Is it important for your projects? Does it support your additional financing for this project? Supported by the national broadcasters, the big national television channels and broadcasters like BBC or the Rai Uno in Italy. So all of the countries, they have this public broadcasters. Basically, they have their foundations for the support of the national cinema making. And if you are having the co-producers from the country with a strong national broadcaster, it can be the additional support from the public broadcasters. For example, in Italy, RAI supports many films and co-productions, and in the financial plans with Italian co-producers, you might see that as well. Working with international sales agents or distributors. If you are so lucky that at the stage of the script you already have the people who are interested in selling your film in their territories, or the sales agents that are going to be representing your film all over the world, and they are that interested in your film that they do not want to wait for any kind of big festivals to be admitting you and everyone would like to work with you, then they will give you the minimum guarantee so that even before you will make this film or started the filming, you would guarantee that you will only be collaborating with them. This minimum guarantee can be a very important impact for your film. It can be the very good share, or it can be that can as well be the part even comparable to the financial share of some country that can be a full co-producer from your point of view. The private investment. The private investment, that is something that everyone would like to receive, but I would do know that this is the hardest thing to get. It is possible, but hard. There might be the investment from the certain big companies, for example, or there might be the investment from the private persons that are really interested in your film for some of the reason. But this is only about your opportunity, more about your opportunities and your abilities as a producer to present the value of your project to some certain organizations or persons. Um, then the participation in production. This is something that is harder to do in because of Ukrainian um, legislation. When, for example, you don't have the money, but you have a partner that will provide you the equipment free of charge, or that provides you the certain resources, because, like, for example, they have some people who will be working on your projects that have every month's salary, but they will provide the services for your project that are needed in this case. Or well, basically, those are the rental companies or the post production companies that have their own resources, and they can allocate those resources and use the resources to collaborate with you. But it's a hard thing right now, because based on Ukrainian legislation, it has to be the real money, and in kind is it's really hard to work with that. Based on the European experience, it's a very nicely developed and active mechanism that works well. Even if you will need some very expensive optics for your cameras, and you have the rental company from other company from the other country, they can send on the plane with a person, and it will cost you nothing, but and you would spend a half of your budget only that for equipment here. The separate national initiatives, like the Ukrainian Cultural Foundation that we have here, or some other grants that are being provided as well. The grants from different organizations or the NGOs that are supporting some certain cultural initiatives. For example, we have the House of Europe grants, or we have the grants from the USAID that is provided for the content. They've already had the pitchings for the set time already. There are separate grants that have been allocated by the French Cultural Foundations and French Cultural Institute from the Goethe Institute. So you have to search for that. You have to follow that. You have to track that. That might not be made on the regular base, but it can be a very good opportunity for you as well, or Erasmus or others. The product placement, commercial sponsorship. It's very hard for the author's films, because any kind of product placement is can be seen in the author's cinema very clearly. But it is possible. It is possible. Why not? We can have to try that. The awards of the international film markers. When at the stage of development of filming or post-production, you're applying to different film markers, there are some awards there as well. Sometimes those awards is for the best pitch or for the best project in the framework of this film markets. There might be the money awards up till 50,000 euro. Or that might be the in-kind awards. For example, in Cottbus, there is a 30,000 euro for the post-production in the very specific production house in Germany, and you can receive the services for this amount of money. Um, the grants from the International Independent Film Foundation. This is something that applies for us very good and something that is the most interesting for us actually, because basically it has you have the opportunity to spend this money in the territory of your country. So if you have your co-producers, then you have to spend 70 or 80% of money that you have at the territory of your partner. But if you will apply to the International Independent Foundation, then this money is going to be free money. Their money is going to be allocated to your account, and you can spend it in any country that will be comfortable for you. And it's a very good active mechanism because basically, very frequently, especially at the final stages of the production for the project, there is the very good need for the credit money that will not be connected to the specific location, to the specific geography. And you have to be creative. You have to search for the new sources for the finance, like the Ministry of Tourism, the embassies of certain countries, the cultural institutions, the adjacent institutions, the institutions that are interested in the business development of certain countries. They are also interested in some reputational projects as well. And if you will be able to persuade them, there will be the part of your project as well. For example, the touristic organizations, that's something you have to keep in mind. And the sources, the resources. So a lot of sources are going through the Creative Europe program. Then at their website, the Creative Europe Media, you can see the funds here. That is a tab that says funds, and you can click on that and you can see all of the foundations that support Creative Europe programs, and you can apply to these foundations and these funds as well. Can I have the next step? There is also the two databases, the OFI, this is based on territory and countries. It's slightly chaotic, it's hard to use, but when you enter the country and your indicators, a documentary film, feature film, short, full length, what is it, like what you're searching for, what kind of stage you are in, and based on the certain countries, it can give you the very good hint on what you can get. If you have the partnership with some certain country, or you're only considering the partnership with some country, you can see what are the opportunities for the financial support there. Especially interesting is the second tab, the regional funds. That's something that I've told you. And this is basically the Synergio. If you are thinking about replacing your story somewhere to Poland, Italy, or Czech Republic, then that gives you the very good opportunity. That it'll give you the opportunity to understand what is the country that you have to search your partners for in order to receive the most of the financial support. And of course, the independent international film foundations, I'm sure that you're aware of those, and they work both in the development and in the post production. The World Cinema Fund, that works in the framework of the Berlin Film Festival, Vision released at the Locarno, the Huber Bos Fund. I think I've lost one of the letters there, but basically, they work in the Rotterdam Film Festival. Then there is also Torino Film Lab. It works from the regional Italian foundation. I think it's from the regional. I can't remember what is the region that is there. Piedmont. Piedmont? Is it Piedmont? Okay, good. Because I said like, okay. Idée Cinéma du Monde. It's basically considered the International Independent Film Fund as well. You can apply there. Okay, I can't remember that clearly, but I think you can already apply there even if you don't have the French co-producers there. But basically, no, even if they say that in the rules that it would be very good for you to have the producers there because it's really hard to understand how to prepare the project for this very fund. And there's also the additional fund, the SURF funds. There was the program of how you can apply without the producer from Norway. Right now, there is the program that requires you to have the producer from Norway, but they should only spend just around 10% in your country, but you can spend 90% in other countries. So for each of these foundations, you need to have the European partner. For the World Cinema Fund, you do not need to have the German partner. You can have the Polish partner, French partner, but this is the most important thing, European partner for co-production. The money that they provide, they can be spent again in any country without any connection that this is the money from the German film fund. It can only be spent in Germany. No, they can be spent in your country, in the countries of your partners, whatever you like. And the final thing about the applications, because basically, searching for the financial support and searching for the funds, I think the work of the project says it might be very romanticized, making films, and there are some people who have never done it. It seems like it's ahead of the business, and there are a lot of privileges that you have. But basically, the work of the producer, especially under the conditions when you're looking for the financial support and especially the financial for the national foundations and European foundations, it takes a lot of time that you are working with the applications, and you need to work on making those applications in the right way. So that will be interesting for the foundations for them to have the good results on these applications. What do you need to know? You have to understand where you're applying to. You have to read very, very clearly all rules and regulations, whether your project is fitting into the requirements of this fund, so that you will not waste your time. Whether your project is eligible for this fund, keep that in mind. Consider what are the project that has been supported before. Just consider whether you meet the profile of this fund, whether this fund is going to be really interested in your project, because there are some topical funds, or there are funds that are located for these territories that are interested for this foundation in this very moment. Sometimes some funds are very interested in some specific countries. For example, the foundations might be supporting the projects from the African countries or from the Southern Americas. So you have to understand that. You have to understand that. You have to make it clearer, understanding that this is the foundation you want to spend your time with, to save yourself from some really bad mistakes if you haven't read the rules clearly. So you have to read out the rules. What you need to have for your applications. You need to have a nicely developed projects, and you need to have the presentation package, the synopsis, directorial vision, the project producer's vision, the mood board script. Um, it's very good when you have some teaser or some kind of representation video. If you already have the clear understanding of the cast and the location, that's very good. If you have the already confirmed financial support, that's very good. Look, you cannot apply for some certain fund if you do not have the confirmed budgeting already. There is a compulsory mandatory condition at some funds, but there is basically this is additional opportunity, additional benefit for you. This package of documents has to be translated, has to be reread and edited. It has to be well structured. There should be no additional sentences out of no. It has to be done in clear English language, because sometimes there are people in these foundations who might not know English and that on that great level. So everything has to be clear with no any specific complex words. And what is very important, that in your application, it is better to say less but important than to say a lot and meaningless, because basically we have been taught in school maybe that's we have to write a lot, like many, many pages for our essays or any other written works. And it was very important for us to get the certain amount of pages. Not in this case. You have to make it even briefer, that it will be better for you, but it has to be very, very contentful. It has to be the essence of your project. And what is most important, that there are some the coolest things in your project, something the selling points for every project. And it is very important so that your application would show all of the best that you have. So that would have been seen, so that it would has been lit up, so you're not searching for it in, like, I don't know, 25th page from below, but just start with that straight away. What are there other important things? If your application does not meet requirements, yes, that is some things that happen very, very frequently. Um, there is other mistake that might happening is it hasn't been prepared in the well way. You didn't have enough time to prepare it properly, and you might have done it in a better way, but you didn't have some time for some reason. the unformatted application. It is very important so that your application would look professionally, it would have been well structured, it would be made in the very same stylistics for you to for the people understand that this document that you worked with, that you have worked on, so you're not just like reading it and then just send it out. It is a presentation document. It is your face. You know, the funds will do not have the opportunity to have your personal interview, but your document package is your interview. This is how they see it. The bad English language, especially in the script, especially for the scripts. You have to reread the script by the native speakers, by a couple of native speakers. And it would be even better if your colleagues, directors and script writers, producers from those countries that you're applying to, because like, for example, in our case, in both the Polish and French foundation, after the translators, after the native speakers, after many, many editions, our producers have read it out and have got a lot of moments because, you know, they not just understand the language that has been written there. They understand how the foundations will be reading those applications, what kind of questions they might have. And there might be very different questions because of these cultural differences. Something that is clear for us might not be clear for them. And sometimes we're using some certain words in a different meanings, and that might be misleading for the people that are reading your script or reading your application. So you need to make additional remarks, and the native speakers and your partner, your colleagues are going to help you with that. And if you do not have colleagues, then maybe your friends from other countries will help you with that as well. What is the role of your acquaintances in this case? Well, basically the representatives of all foundations that regularly go to all of the festivals. You can meet these people, you can present the project to them, but they're not making the final decision. The commissions are making the final decision. The commissions that every foundation have are making the final decision. But being active at the international film market is overall gives you the opportunity to get more people acquainted with your project even before you have applied for the certain funds support. If the selectors of the foundations have heard about you, have been to the co-production market where you have been pitched or you have been presented, well, they have all of those people, they know they're coming from one labs to another film market, from film markets to another foundation. So this is a very close circle of people. And if you are in this international media space, then your project is already being known. If you have been working for the development of this project for a longer period of time, of course, it will help you to get some financial support. If you have been working developing your project inside of yourself and no one has heard about your project, then it's going to be harder to do that. It's like a film. You know, when you come into the cinema, you're making a decision which film to choose. And if you have heard about some film, then you're going to make a choice that you would like to watch this film, but not the film you never heard about. So yes, this direct no, then that acquaintances with this film foundations, the members of the film foundations will not help you to get chosen. But if they will know the project, then yes, that would be for your benefit, definitely. I would really like to know maybe what kind be the secrets of successes. I would really like to know that as well. But what is the success? I think that when you hear that some kind of a word has been provided or the workshop permission has been worked there as well, you might only understand that those people have definitely worked on that on the best way. Because from my experience, yes, in time, the percentage of the successful application is becoming better because you know how to apply for it in a better way. But it's still not that high as you would really like to have. It's just to think that you will apply for 5 foundations and 3 of them are going to be successful. No, that's no. There are many projects are always provided there, and you have to be competitive, competent, and you have to be different. So there's no aspect that will let you win. The most important thing is to take a lot of time, to take the needed time, to take all of the needed professional capabilities to create those applications, to ask people, to provide additional consultancies. Somehow, very, very rarely, people ask questions to one another because every time my colleagues are asking me about something, I'm always telling them what they want to hear. I'm really happy when people are helping me when I'm asked them. You have to communicate. You have to consider the mistakes or the fails that have already been done by your predecessors. And you have to accumulate the experience and basically um, what I've already said, your unique selling points, your unique points have to be clear, they have to be seen, formatting the presentation, inviting designers. Okay, you shouldn't do that. Like for example, for State Film Foundation in Ukraine, they really want the separate files, so you will not make it in a one per single presentation. But for example, for some foundations, this is one single package that you can create together with the designer. Then it will be more coherent. And of course, the work that you have done beforehand, in advance, before you applied for the foundations, the more awards you have, like labs, production markets, or the clearer and the more experienced reputational partners you have, then the higher chances you have. So the secret success is not the application itself, it's everything you've done before that. So the application is only the cause that gives you the final results. Do I have more slides there? I can't even recall. Okay, so yes, this is the final slide. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Alexandra, for that. So basically, all of the questions that I've had and I personally had throughout your presentation, you've kind of covered that. You've covered all those questions, and I think that we can get to the questions from our audience because we have quite a lot of those questions actually. Basically, we can even combine them under the certain topics. For example, there were a couple of people asking you about the very beginning. So we have already answered Mihailo's questions of basically how to meet your producer. So there is also the questions, what should the young producer start with if they want to produce the film or a series? And what were the other questions there as well? There were some other questions about the very beginners and the beginning of it. And yes. So what should I answer? I'm sorry. It's hard for me to understand those questions. Can you just formulate the questions rightly? Yes. Basically, I'm searching for the second question, but I can't find it. There was another questions about the very beginnings of it, how to start. Yes, but basically, let us put it this way: the people are asking, how should the producers start to be starting when they want to produce the films or series? So I am the beginner producers. What should I start with? Okay, first of all, you have to build up the strategy of what it is that you would like to do and not just be keep on doing something to get something done. It doesn't work. You have to know what is interesting for you, what are the directions that you're interested, what kind of films that you would like to make, and not trying to get to the very first thing, like you've got the very first project coming to you, and as a beginner you think that I'm just going to be working with this project and that it. No, as some kind of a training session maybe, but I don't think it's very honest. You have to do something that is very interesting for you, even if you're just learning how to do that. So try to understand what you want to do. Because even this comparison between the films and series, those are very different directions. Like I'm interested in films and series, but specific ones. And I used to have this moment that I've tried to step aside from what is interesting for me, and I've understood that I'm losing the energy, I'm losing time, and it's the wrong way for me to take. Because the producer is the person that is working with the project for the longest period of time, and you've spent a lot of time into it, invest a lot of time into this project, and if the project does not good, it's not very good for that, doesn't worth it, then do not do that. So you're looking for the project, then you're looking, for example, an idea or a basis or the event that you would like to talk about, and I know historical fact, you're looking for the script writer who's going to be local, doing the story for you. You're looking for the director. This is a complicated path. That is a complicated path, but this is going to give you the fullest control on the project. It's your project. You have visualized it. You're getting the people onto this project that we're going to be implementing this project in the best ways. The second way is to look for the ready developed projects and to know whether you are interested in working with those. In this case, it is important for you to have the similar vision for the project with the director, with the script writer, and you have to talk. You have to talk. I was listening to Dmytro Sokolsky-Sobchuk lecture about the collaboration between the author and the producer, and I work with him, but it was very important for me to hear that from that take a stepping aside. At the project stage, it's very important to talk about the project a lot because sometimes you will not have the time for that. You like the project, you believe that there's something that you want to do, and you keep on running and making it. But you have to talk about what is the author's vision for it, because even what has been written in his directorial vision, you can understand it in a different ways. And this is something that is going to help you to do this project in the best way, to choose it, first of all, to know that this is your project, and to make it real, make it the best. Speaking on some really methodological advice, well, you have to understand that the producing requires additional financial resources. A producer is not a person that's it's a person who's searching for money and who's providing the money for all of the other people. So you need to have the background for that. You need to have certain financial stability to do that. And if you, for example, if you're doing something in the same time and you have the time to produce in the same time, if you have some financial stability in place, then it is very, very good for the beginners. It is very important for the beginners because it's a long way. It's a complicated path. And if you do not have the financial stability, then at some point of time, you might lose the motivation to do that. I know a lot of great professional people who might be very good producers, but are not making their step because they do not want to lose this financial stability that their work gives them when they're working with other people, for other people. So first of all, creating strategy, then finding the project that you would like to work with, then for the third thing, to understand what is it that you would like to do, that you're ready to that. You know, producing is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is risks. You have to be ready for that. And then you have to participate in different events and local events, international events. You have to meet people, you have to make acquaintances. Speaking on the international co-production, then I have to say that yes, it turned out for me, and I was very lucky that when I was still working as an executive producer, I have been studying on the development for a couple of projects when I was as an executive producer and development producers. And while I was working with other people, I was studying. So when I have started working with my own projects, I've already had the name and experience because I have been traveling to many different film festivals, film markets, and I had the opportunity to apply to all of the possible labs. I went to this beginner's path. And because of that, it was much easier for me to work with my first project. But as soon as I became the independent producers, I needed another year and a half so that in the eyes of my future partners, I would build up the name for myself as a producer. Because before that, I was as an executive producer or development producer that works for a different company. Then, of course, it was clear that I was the representative of a different company. And it doesn't guarantee that I am as a person, as a professional, that will be able to fulfill all of the other tasks and all of the other liabilities from my side if I do not have a lot of stuff and a lot of resources available for me as it used to be in the other company. So the same thing that I've told you about the producers that I was looking for, it really required some time. You know, they've needed to know me and they have seen me, for example, that I'm coming to one film market and I only have a synopsis there. 3 months later, I'm coming with a script, and 2 months, the more I'm entering some lab, or like then I have the development fund and then I have the production market. They see this development and they understand, okay, you're working on that. That's cool. But there are some people who are traveling, you know, with the very same synopsis for 5 years. And of course, it's going to be much harder for them to find the partners. So I'm sorry for taking a lot of time and I'm sorry for being quite long, but you know, basically the producing is not about having fun. It's not entertainment, unfortunately. It's a very hard, exhausting, mundane, boring thing that requires a lot of time and resources, and you have to be ready for that. It would be better if you would start with some certain short films and just to build your own base and then keep on working on that further on. And to have these financial resources to participate in the international events, that's very important. Yes, thank you. And continuing the topic of the beginners, Andrew has been asking, how do you select your projects that you're working on? And Rosalia has been asking that as well. Can we then send your scripts to you with the short film scripts? But I do believe that it has been a very good and broad answer that Sasha has already told us what the people are looking for. Yes, you can address me. You can send me your scripts. I will be honest. I'm just a beginner. I don't have a lot of resources. I cannot take a lot of projects at the same time. Even those projects that I'm already working on sometimes will lack the resources. And so for me, collaboration with every new author is something that's something very important for me. If I understand that this is something that I can live without, then I'm doing that. Sometimes it happens that I cannot live without this very specific author, so I believe this person as an author, and maybe I'm not understand the project to some certain stage, and I understand the author. I trust the author. Maybe the author just didn't articulate it in the right way. Maybe they haven't got the right words, but I can see the potential and I can wait before the project will turn out to be something that I'm interested in as well. Sometimes I'm interested in the project itself. So when I see the potential straight away, but I may have some questions on the capability of the author and the possibilities of the author to implement this project in the right way, because it's also possible. So I'm reading out everything that has been sent to me. Sometimes I try to answer straight away. Sometimes I might not, just forget, or it might be lost in the emails. But if people remind me then about that, then I'm reading it out and I'm answering that straight away. For example, there was one of the authors who called me. I was really, really grateful for that. I haven't known her before. I've read out what she sent me, and I've take a look at her work. And so basically, yes, there's going to be yet another interesting collaboration from our side. So I do hope for that. So it's a very, very important to say another moment. If you believe in your projects and people say no to you, it doesn't mean that your project is bad. You just haven't found the people that you can make the project yet. There is no absolute notions here. There are no absolute people who will tell you that you have a bad film. That's it. They might not just get it. There's a lot of examples in international film and film history when the project that no one believed in has become the greatest hits. So if you have the faith, then try to search for your producers, for your director, for your author. And what is very important, try not to keep on standing still. The project has to live. If you have written a script and you're doing it for the 3 years already, you've already out of it, you've lost something. So the project has to be developed. You have to make some certain steps, not just looking for some people who will implement your project, but you have to make some certain steps. You have to make some certain steps so this partnership could happen. Like, I don't know if I explained it in a clearer way, but well, yes, it's not just, it has been very clear, it has been very motivating as well. Yes, there is another group of questions as well. So basically, we're getting to another thing, another topic of this international exposition, being exposed to the international audience. So I think we can combine these two questions. This first question from Masha Novikova. Good evening. Thank you very much for this interesting conversation. Can you please tell us, is it easier to get to the labs with your script, the labs that are oriented for the Eastern European films, or there is the sense to try to get to the film labs that never worked with the Eastern European films, and what of the lab developments, what of the script development labs you would offer for Ukraine? And there is a sub question from Sasha Chupko. So can you please clarify what are the pitches that require the prima nota rights and what do not? Well, I'm not an encyclopedia, basically. Well, like, for example, I know that, for example, work in progress section from Vision du Ril, they require the premiere, the work in progress in Carlo Vivare, all of the class A festivals, they require that. That's definitely the Berlinale co-production market, the Cinemat, Lizoc is not as well at the Class A festival, but they really want the premiere. Carlo Vivare require a premiere. Lots of commercial markers, the white no. The Sophia meetings does not require that. If as much as I remember, but you have to remember that they are getting their financement for the very same program. So we have been participating in the film market that has been supported by the very same program as, for example, the film market that you have applied for, then they're going to have the lower chances to get there because they report all the report and they cannot report that they've been supporting for the very same project. For example, I know that you have been applying for the Vilnius co-production market. I do believe that didn't require this the premier status only be the one, but I don't know, you have to read out the conditions of the participation for every specific co-production market. But the more you know about this market, then it's basically the more chances that you can only apply to very this one film market and not to apply to all of the others. So, and you can apply to others then. What was the first question? What were the first question was about yes, okay, I recalled it. I recall that. Should you so okay, speaking on that, should you apply to the Eastern European labs, script labs? That's funny, but 3 years ago I've started to collaborate as an executive producer, and I have been working not with my project, with my producer project, but with other project. We have had made these jokes because we have started this press releases, the first project that has ever been selected somewhere. But we used to do that. That was the truth. But now we're laughing at it. Right now, the labs that 3 years ago we have been the first one to win the participation. Then after that, 3 and 4 projects have been applying to there as well. It's not just a question that have already been the Ukrainian project or not, because like for example, you already know that the Future Launch has already had Pamphir by Dmytro Soholetki Sobchuk. They had Homewards with Nariman Aliyev. And then it's basically how it's going. There was this projects like what's how's Kati doing, and so we had been at the midpoint. So I can't recall how many other people have been there as well. But when you see those news and you believe that, like, okay, so I should be applying to this very project because it's from this Eastern European fund. No, it's not that it's the Eastern European fund. It's just that it's when you have already find this opportunity once, it's much easier to get selected, to get seen. You at least know that you can apply there, and people know that it's a very good project coming from Ukraine that show very good results in the end. And all of the labs, they're always interested in selecting the project that will have the very good feedback in the end, because there will be more and more people coming from this project. But when we have been applying to this project, that was been for the very first time. For the very first time, the project has been selected to the Frontiers co-production market. The Limelight project by Volodymyr Yatsenko. I'm just working with these applications. The project, you're my cosmos. So we've had this idea. Then should we participate in that because it was a French Canadian co-production market that is held in Montreal. So, but it really matched our topics at that moment, and that was a very interesting initiative, and we have been selected. We have been the first to participate there, and it was a very effective tool for us to participate there. So if you are number one, if you're the first, it might be even a very good bonus because, as I've already said, if you're going to be applying for some certain Argentinian foundation from Ukraine, they will definitely take a look at you. How did you find us? How did it happen that you're applying to us? So there's no limitations. For its most important thing is for you to fit the requirements, because not all of the countries can be eligible to participate in these selections. But otherwise, it doesn't matter. And the topics. You have to understand that if you're making author films, but this foundation is supporting the general films, then of course you're hitting the wrong doors. What are the labs? The script development labs. I do believe the less is more is one of the best labs. It's a very innovative. There are the best tutors that are being there. the biggest pain for me that it's only been held online last year, and for me it doesn't work because why that is that cool? Why am I telling you about that? Because those are the three workshops that are being done in some certain places where there's no internet, there's no connection, there's not even a single shop close by. You're basically taken to the forest, really to the forest, or to the seaside where there's no people around you. They settle you out in a very comfortable hotel that has the conference room for your classes, and that's it. That's it. Only you. So less is more. So you're having lunch, having your breakfast, you work there, going for a walk. You're living with your projects all the time. The projects that are being selected there, they're choosing the very cool authors there. It's really hard to get there, but the quality of the projects is really good. The tutors are really good. I have witnessed that. They're getting from the very morning for 15 minutes there for an hour. They're discussing all of the projects and they're making the plan of how they can help these projects. And in the evening, after it's all finalized, they're getting 1 hour again. They're showing the information and they're telling like what is going to be happening the next day. No. So they are very interested in the development of the project. They're really interested in opening you up and to find the core of the story. So they really want to find what was that you wanted to say with that. Not doing just the outside cosmetic job, but it's basically to understand what is the essence of your story and what is the best way to show it. So this is the best for me. Torino Film Lab, Midpoint Future Launch that we have been participating as well. They're very cool. They're very cool in their own way. They're very cool for the development of the project and the scripts as well. But the development of the project overall, because they help you to build up the contacts, to find the people who will be able to give you the network. They have very cool tutors, not only the script tutors, but they have the tutors very cool from about the producing the project. Less is more only works with the scripts, but for writing the scripts, less is more is the best. Um, then again, there is always also residencies, not the labs. Residencies is slightly different. That's very cool as well, because this is an opportunity for you for 2 or 3 months to get all of your business away and just to work on your script. NIPCO, I think we had the terrarium residents as well, and those people who have participated in that, they know that it was a very cool thing to happen as well. 2 or 3 weeks, they had this opportunity to spend in Carpathian Mountains and only be working on their scripts, to work with the script doctors there as well. The best thing about it, the best thing is going to be the best thing that you will find for yourself and the experience that you will find for yourself. Because sometimes I'm being asked, what would I would like to spend time more? Like, what would be the film market that you wouldn't go for the second time? Or what lab you wouldn't like to go to? Of course, I have some certain experience. Of course, I can't say that I like everything, but it has already happened that you have this opportunity, you have been invited. Because before the borders, when the borders have been open, I've tried to travel as much as possible. I've had at least one trip a month, sometimes even 2 or 3 trips a month. And those were just the trips that I have initiated, but those were the trips when I have been invited to as well. I have been invited to some certain events. They've given me the opportunity. They paid for the hotel or for the trip even. And when you're traveling a lot, that's very exhausting. And sometimes it even happened that it didn't it was too much. It was too much that you need to spend a little bit time at home. But I've also have said that I have to go there, even if there was a very small event, because at this small event there might be more valuable contacts than you will get at the big events. Because at small events people are not that busy and there is more opportunities to communicate. There is the atmosphere is more relaxed and there is more ways to communicate to one another, and there is basically a loads of unexpected contacts that can become a very good partnership overall. So especially if you're at the very beginning of your past, the more knowledge you'll have, the more people you meet, the better that will be. Yes, by the way, about traveling, Dmitro Shulha is asking you, Alexander, you have traveled more countries with professional aim or with touristic aim. And he also adds up that in your presentation you have said being lucky. So whether the settling out a successful co-production is made by chance or made by luck. When I said lucky, Okay, let me put it this way. I don't know whether we're like, I don't know, speaking, because if we're speaking about traveling professionally, there was just, the professional traveling. So I've had this experience with coming for my professional trip. When, for example, I took my family. So like my family have seen much more for just being there for the first time than myself being there for third or fourth time. It's not about leisure. It's not about traveling. You don't have the opportunity to see anything because you're having the very first flights. Then you have the meetings up till 7 in the evening, and there are some additional events that where the networking has been held. So it's very, very exhausting. Starting from the 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning up till 11 in the evening, you're working. You're working and communicating, communicating, communicating. And basically, I never calculated how many countries I've visited. I don't know, many. What was the second question about being lucky? Well, I think that yes, you've about the being lucky, about being lucky. So when I said we were lucky, I'm lucky to have some people around me, to meet my people. And on one hand, there's no way how you can influence that. And on the other hand, I think it's up to you fully because um, whether you're open to those meetings, whether you understand it clearly what your people are, it's much easier for you to find those people that would fit you. And being lucky with the partners, I think that it's being honest with yourself because I had this very moments then well, I had a very interesting partners with their experience. So they've had a lot of films there. They have been in the many festivals. They had a successful distribution all over the world. But you feel something like they like your projects, but you feel like something is wrong. And this moment when like trust your guts. You have to trust your inner feelings. This is So this is something that you feel, you have to trust it because this is the compilation of all of your experience. You might not articulate why is it that you feel at this very moment, but you feel it because your experience are telling you that. So that is why it is important to keep faith, to keep on believing and not to follow some certain titles or reputational moments, but to find the people that will help you the most. Because there's another moment when you're a debutant and you're working with a big company, with it your co-producer or sales agent, or is this going to be the promo agency of any kind? Then it is very important. So it's your project has to be in the priority because if your project will be lost, then it's better to work with someone smaller, but who will prioritize your project, who's going to be deal working on your project 24/7. Yes, that's for sure. That's for sure. That's a very important to understand. You have to understand the priority for your projects, and I can support you with that because you can feel that when the person believes that your project is important, that your project is of high priority. Well, basically, the next questions they are taking out away of this lyrical topics of luck and traveling, and they are more pragmatic and more financial concentrated and the legal even aspect. So I'm going to post out these questions and we're going to be closing up basically and switching now for voting for the best question, and we will go into um, find out who's going to be having the masks with the Film Wednesday logo and the Caffeine Vagabond. I am already sorry for the people whose questions haven't been voiced out. It only means that either your questions are have been slightly connected to the different topics than the international co-production. For example, the questions about the festival distributions, we have already discussed it with Yulia Sienkiewicz in her masterclass, or we've had some couple of questions that were not that much of a questions, but have been more of discussion topics than we don't have time for. So basically, I'm really sorry for not voicing out your questions, but getting back to this pragmatic financial issues, there are a couple of questions from Bogdan Homin and from Maria Kondakova. There are basically identical questions on the risks. So, what do you think about your own financial investment to the project at the different production stages? So, are you eager to invest your own money, and at what stage you would like to do that? If so, and Bogdan Homin is asking as well. So, how much your own money? So, okay, it's a very direct question. So, like, what is the figure of your own money? How much your own money have you spent for your projects, and when do you think you will return this money back to you? And continuing this question for Bogdan, I would like to add up the question from Laura Timchenko West. And maybe partly I'm going to answer Bogdan's question as well. And Lara was asked whether there is opportunity for Ukrainian filmmakers to collaborate with different international services like Netflix, HBO, and others, and whether it will be considered the co-production or that will be the production from Netflix and HBO, for example, hypothetically. So investment and collaboration with streamings, let's put it this way. Speaking on my own money, well, basically, you cannot, well, okay, it's possible to get the financial from, not from your own side, but okay, I'm not going to I'm not going to be talking about that, but if we speak about European funds, if you would like to receive the financial support for the European funds so that your project would be interesting for them, of course, you will need a lot of time and a lot of resources that needed to be allocated just to get to this demonstration package. And I would like to tell you that all of the authors that we're working with, and they can say that as well, I am always engaging my own resources for the development of the project, always. There must be the financial resources, sometimes there is the organizational resources as well, but it requires, even traveling to the film markets, working on the different development programs, they all take money. It's really hard to get there, but you have to pay for that as well. Yes, and for yes, even if you are invited, even if you have the residence, so you're still going to spend some money when you're going to be located in another country. Anyways, if speaking about the figures, then it will depend on the project, on the stage of the project, at what stage that you get it, that you receive that. If you'll need to get the scenario from straight away, then you have to pay for the script. If you already have the script for the project, then you will have to spend the money for the development of the project. And if sometimes you already had the project with a presentation package, then you will have to spend some money for making the teaser or whatever. In the For our partners, they're all being supported by the development funds. We also have the resources from the Ukrainian Cultural Foundation right now. It is available again. Then yes, of course, it really helps out. The amount of money that they give, 20,000 euro, I would like to tell you that this is the average amount of money that is needed to be spent to get the project financed, if you are really serious about it. Because basically, you can calculate it easily. Just one any kind of program for the project development, it will cost you around 30,000 euro, and you will need to add up the tickets there and traveling there with travel expenses as well. The same thing about participating in the co-production market and making scripts. You know how much the scripts cost, and if you do not have the script, then you have to pay for the work for the authors. Even even the translation, the good translation for any kind of foreign language will cost you. Well, it depends. You have friends, you have colleagues that will help you. You can even make it free of charge. But to be very honest, up from 500 euro up to 3,000 euro, depending on what language you're translating it to. And you need to make these translations not only for the script, but for the other languages. If you know English, then you can even save some money and do it on your own. But if there's going to be the language that you don't know, like French, Polish, Italian, German, then you have to pay for that as well. The designer service and others. So basically, I'll be honest with you with that. That's just to have just to calculate how much money have I spent for the certain development of certain projects, like I know more or less, I don't know the precise amount of money because basically that it's a very prolonged time. You're working on the development of project from year up to 3 years, so it's not being calculated altogether. Of course, it's much better when you have some development funds and you can at least compensate some of the money, but sometimes it's not possible. Speaking on when this money should return, well, basically at this very moment, I'm only working on my very first projects. We'll see. We'll see when the money is going to be returned and know how it's going to happen. But I do believe that it has to be some certain money that you're ready to let go because you have to evaluate this risk from your side, and everyone had their own level of risks available. Yeah, that's why I've asked this question for the support of on the streamings, right? Because a lot of people believe that that would be a very easy money, or like for example, the pre-sales for the television. So, like free money, easy monies that the producers can return straight away as their own impact, as their own share. I don't have the experience of collaborating with a streaming platform or at this very moment. I can say nothing about that. The only thing that I can say that all of my colleagues, all of the partners, they all have this HBO, Amazon's offices and other streamings, Netflixes. They have the local offices. They're searching for the local content, and from their conversations, I know, but we're interested for this and that because our local office is currently looking for that. Yes, the stool works, but because we don't have the representatives of this platform in Ukraine. I know that they've already sold some films for the HBO, like My Thoughts Are Silent, and there are other successful cases, but I haven't thought about this issue right now, so I cannot give you the very detailed answer to that. Okay, so from my side, I can add up to this. That's basically the with streaming services or with any kind of the TV channel that can be both a co-production is possible and the pre-sale for the rights is as well possible. Both the streaming platform and the television channel, they can invest some money at the production stage and they can actually own the full package for the rights, or they can have the share of the rights as well. Mostly the streamings are buying the rights fully if it has been done at the production stage. But if you were talking about the film that is already been completed, then usually they're working as a pre-sales. So the streaming, so the television channel, they're buying the rights, exclusive or non-exclusive. It depends on the conditions for your agreement to show your film at their platform or at their television channel. So basically, if the rights are being procured by the streaming services, then basically the film all fully owned by the streaming platform. But it will all depend on what will be your negotiations. Because, for example, I had my co-mate in the Eurodoc platform. I'm not going to name these projects, not to give you all of the industry secrets. But for example, Netflix has offered her to buy the rights for her film, the film that has she has been producing at this moment, for 400,000 euro. And she has she has been very happy about it first, but then she has thought about it and she understood that if Netflix offers to buy the rights for 400,000 euro, that there might be sure that they're going to find this 400,000 euros and they will earn even more on her project. And she have decided she's not going to be selling these rights. And she decided that she will partly make the film on her own and using the funds, and then to do the pre-sales when she's going to have the rough cut available, and then going to be get into the more or less same amount of money, but to invest it not for the production, but to, return her own investment or to invest it in the royalties. So to manage this money in another way. So that's yes, there are many different schemes available. There is also another question just to finalize it up from the Baidarza user is asking us, Trial, they're asking us, do you know the very precise money, how much the script will cost? From my side, because it depends. It depends, and it depends, and it will all depend on what is the negotiations between the producers and the script writers. Sasha, what will you say about that? How much the script costs? The script, the script is basically the reward that you're talking about the royalties, the author's award. And the award and, the royalties as any kind of the wage or payment, it's actually based on the professional quality of the author, on the professional quality of the screenwriter, on their previous experience, on their ability to make the high quality products. So the price is very different depending on that. Because, for example, I was sometimes interested, I was asking my partners of in this just in percentiles, how does it work with them? And they do not have the very precise cost of it. But if speaking, for example, in the percentage from the budget, if it is a good author, that it's 2.5% out of all of the budget of the film. Yes, of the budget worth of the film. This is for the screenwriter, the royalty for the screenwriter, but it will depend from the countries. In some countries, the script writers, they receive more than the directors do, and the authors of the script, they might be the showrunners, and there might be even more important people than the directors are. In our system, the directors believe that is believed to be more important, more to have more to be more reliable for the final result. But you know how much you will earn for the market. I don't know if you're working in as a first ID, but the royalties are very different. The royalties are very different, and the wages are very different. It seems like we're doing it in a different work, the same work, but it's being paid in differently sometimes. And yes, we can understand. Like, I've also had this question. I understand why they have this question. Like, how much should I ask for the certain work? It's quite clear. It's quite clear question. It's quite clear motivation. But then I have understood that basically you just have to recall how much time did you have, how much time have you spent for this work, and you have to set out the certain average cost of this 1 unit of time. You have to identify it for yourself. Like, for example, in a month, I have spent 6 months for this script, for example, or I have spent 900 hours of work for this script. And in this month or in this hour, I would like to optimally earn X amount of money. Averagely, it will be good to have Y amount of money, and I will never go lower than Z amount of money. And you will have this you will have this notion for yourself, and it's much be easier for you, to rule your world with that. So no precise numbers. It's really hard to calculate any precise numbers without knowing. But right now we should vote for the best question, because we're already made this conversation longer, but we can continue that. We understand that there is the demand for our audience to do that, and the topic is very interesting. And but still, or fortunately or unfortunately, we need to wrap up. So, Sasha, I have the final question to you. Who would be those one lucky person? And you have the right to choose this one lucky person, and I have the right to choose the other one lucky person. Who would you give the prize for the best question? Can I think for it for a second? Because I really get really bad. I don't get the information really good when I'm listening to this. Yes, maybe just just as a feeling, what was the most interesting for you to talk about? So, that is why I'm here. Like, if you say, like, what was the most interesting thing for you to talk about, I will tell you what was the question that inspired you to say that. From my side, for example, if you're still thinking and considering your choice, then I would have given the award for the best question to the Metro, who has asked, how many countries have you been as a tourist, and how many countries have you been as a professional, and who has asked you about the luck? Because basically it has gotten a very light note to our serious conversation, but still, that was a very relevant question, and it was still considering the topic of our conversation. So, the first prize for the best question is given to Dmytro Shulha. The mask with the film Wednesday logo and the coffee in the Vagabond Cafe is yours. So, okay. Yes, I think I'm going to be producer-like, practical. There was a question from about the beginners, about the beginning producer, about what is important and what to start with. I think that it's a very important question because if you are here and if you're the beginner, if you're looking for the opportunities, if you're looking for the information to do that all right, then you're on the right path. And I just want to give you an incentive on this path because asking question is important, and even if there's questions that seems very basic, you can get the answer that will inspire you and that will help you to make the next step. Yes, so Laura Timchenko West has asked you these questions, what the young producer should start with to produce the film or a series. So Laura, you have already made this first step and you have already even received the feedback. So this is the very good sign that you're taking the right way. Congratulations to you as well. So as far as I know, as far as I've understood right now, then the organizers of the film Wednesday are going to contact you, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe my colleagues that are going to um, I'm going to help me with that. Maybe you should. Oh, no, you will be contacted. Okay, you will be contacted. The organizers will contact you and they will clarify the details to provide you the prizes. And once again, I would like to remind to all of us that we have been talking to Oleksandra Kostina about the international co-production and its peculiarities. That was the final workshop in our this season of Film Wednesday 2021. So that has been a very interesting workshops. I'm really grateful for all of our speakers. I'm really grateful to all of our organizers, and I am very grateful to the audience that has been listening and participating in our workshops and asking questions. But the Film Wednesday doesn't end up with that. Then later on in our seasons, we're going to see the readings of the scripts of the unmade films. Yes, we're going to have the public talk with Olha Lubarova, the casting director. And finally, we're going to have the short film screening in the House of Cinema. So, the Film Wednesday has started with the offline screening and is going to be ending up with an offline screening as well. We are looking forward to it because we really missed it. So thank you, Sasha. Thank you very much for the invitation. It was been a pleasure. And thank you for the questions. That was a pleasure. That was a pleasure. I hope it was very useful for you. And thank you very much. It was always very interesting to listen to this experience for the other people as well. And I do hope that is going to save us all from some certain mistakes. Because, sharing experience is something that is what we have to do, to develop as a community, but not as separate professionals. So thank you very much. Have a good evening.